Bienvenidos a Junior Curator Academy, tu mirada de bajo balcón. Yo soy David.
Y yo soy Sophie.
Join us at the Museum of Glass as we fuel your curiosity,
Ignite exciting ideas,
and discover new ways of being creative.
and remember, all activities are aligned with Washington State standards to assist home learners and educators fulfill academic credits.
Today, we are going to learn about artwork created by two Mexican-American brothers, Einar and Jaimex de la Torre, who live in San Diego, California, and Mexico. This is their wonderful installation of natural causes. But what does the title mean?
Generally, of natural causes can mean several things. Most often it's used when someone dies naturally, say from old age or illness. During this episode, I think we'll discover that the De La Torre brothers have an alternate meaning for the title of their installation. First, let's explore who the De La Torre brothers are. Einar and Jaimex have worked together as collaborating artists for over 30 years. They were born in Guadalajara, Mexico in the 1960s. In a sudden family move in 1972, they arrived in a small Southern California beach town, which was much different from their life in Mexico. They both went to California State University at Long Beach. Currently, the brothers work together in the Guadalupe Valley in Mexico and in San Diego, California. They've been doing so since the 1990s. Their work is complex, filled with references to Catholic and Aztec religious iconography, Mexican arts and crafts, the migrant experience, border conflicts, ideas around conservation, and commentary on consumerism. Much of their work is heavily influenced by their experiences, transitioning from Mexican to American culture as children, and the culture shock associated with their move to America. Both were very impactful experiences. In their artwork, the brothers use diverse materials. Many are carefully found in chosen components, such as plastic figures and toys and other objects selected from flea markets and thrift shops. The multimedia installation we're looking at in this episode is described by the brothers as in the Baroque style. So what does this mean? We'll get to that soon.
I'm thrilled to introduce these two important Mexican-American artists. They personally are among my favorites and have been an inspiration to me. I'm excited to explore their work with all of you today. Now let's get started with this piece. It's called Game Warden, but it looks more like a deer to me. Maybe our resident junior curator scholar, Jabari, can inform us more about this piece.
Well, David, I'll do my best. The irony of this piece is that deer are one of the most hunted animals on the planet, whereas a game warden is usually a person employed by the government and acts as authority to protect animals from poaching and exploitation.
Junior curators, did you know that the history of game wardens goes all the way back to the medieval times in England? Royalty used game wardens to protect their land and animals, patrol for poachers, and hunt for the royal family. In the 1890s, naturalist John Muir created Yosemite, Sequoia, and General Grant National Parks in the state of California. Needing to ensure that no one took advantage of land or animals within these parks, and to protect the natural resources, the US government hired their first game wardens. Game wardens are still in action today. We sometimes refer to them as fish and wildlife officers. They protect the public lands and animals.
Thanks, Sophie. That's really interesting. Let's get back to the De La Torre brothers' game warden piece. In the time of the Aztecs, deer were harvested for the whole animal. Their hooves, meat, antlers, everything was used. Nothing was wasted. And like many indigenous cultures, the killing of prey was undertaken with a great spirit of respect. There was little or no sport hunting. Deer was associated with the god Tialak, a god of thunder and rain who could bring floods and drought upon the lands and people. Do you see where we're going here?
Now that I know the title and history, this piece makes me reflect on the importance of respecting nature and the consequences of climate change, like what we see today with the devastating fires and floods around the world.
Yes, indeed. Something you'll also notice is that the deer is standing on tarot cards. The tarot arcana are a tool of divination and New Age spiritual practices, and popular culture thought to help to decipher the past, present, and future. It works by the participants approaching the cards with a question in good faith in order to get an answer or guidance. The De La Torres are making a statement about choices that people make can influence and affect the environment. Depending on those choices, there are going to be different outcomes.
Junior curators, Did you know that around the world, youth climate activists are joining together and demanding critical environmental changes? Young activists like Greta Thunberg, Naomi Morris, and Shia Bastida are lobbying for change within their respective governments and on the world level to ensure that we all have a healthy planet to live on. We can all take a stand and advocate for climate policies within our communities.
Thanks, Sophie. As we mentioned before, the De La Torre brothers' work takes influence from the tradition of Mexican Baroque style. The Baroque style is typically defined as elaborate and highly detailed with the portrayal of dramatic moments. Mexican Baroque is a unique hybrid of the Baroque period as it evolved from the influences of Aztec culture.
Many of you may know from history class that in 1492, Christopher Columbus sponsored the King and Queen of Spain, Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, to find a northwest passage to Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic, where he accidentally discovered America. Of course, he didn't really discover it because there were millions of people living there already. But this was new territory for Europeans. Eventually, conquistadors colonized Mexico, calling it the New Spain. With colonization, numerous architects and artists made their way to Mexico. Spain was a Catholic country, and part of colonization meant building churches and spreading Catholicism to indigenous peoples.
While the Baroque style originated in Italy, its evolution in Mexico took on unique characteristics. First, Spanish artists worked alongside indigenous craftspeople, and this included assimilating indigenous Aztec imagery into the ornamentation used in architecture and design often found in churches and places of worship. Much of these integrated designs finds its way into the De La Torre's work. In the installation of Natural Causes, we can see the evidence of these integrated designs. The piece, The Plunder of Catholic Kings, is a great example of the combining Aztec and Catholic imagery. The skeletal body literally stands atop an Aztec design figure while gold coins spill about the sides. The De La Torres use this combining of these cultures through the design to make objects that tell the narrative of colonization.
Junior curators, did you know that the Italian Baroque art period started in 1600 in Rome, Italy? Baroque artists focused on creating a strong emotional experience between the artwork and the viewer. Many artists were commissioned by the Catholic Church to produce paintings and architecture that depicted moving and passionate times in history to further the Catholic faith. Baroque art strived to show action in the moment. One example is St. Teresa's Ecstasy by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Looking at this sculpture on the altar showing St. Teresa's visit by an angel, you are moved by the movement and the bodies, the drapery, and the ornate nature of this altarpiece. Mexican Baroque retained the dramatic emotion of Italian Baroque, but took it even further, like next level further. Look at this image of the Metropolitan Cathedral in Mexico City. This site was built atop the Templo Mayor of the Aztec god Huitzilopochtli. Ornamentation exploded into the interior of churches in the Mexican Baroque style, and no surface was left untouched. There's a phrase to describe this: el horror vacui, horror of empty space. They didn't want to leave anything to the imagination, and embellishments went everywhere and included all kinds of materials like plaster and wood, retablos, and ceramic tiles.
The Aztec religion, culture, and imagery is important to the De La Torre brothers. Let's take a look at this now. The Aztec people, or Mexica, migrated to central Mexico in the 13th century. They lived in Tenochtitlan, which is current-day Mexico City. The Mexica were led by their god Huitzilopochtli to build their city when they came across a lake with an eagle eating a snake on top of a cactus. It is thought that this city was founded in the 1400s when the Mexica came across this apparition on Lake Texcoco. The Mexican coat of arms pays homage to this legend as it depicts an eagle perched upon a cactus eating a snake. The Mexica had an ingenious agricultural system that allowed them to flourish in only 200 years. The Mexica created a city of great wealth, which was a center of economic, religious, and political power. However, their community and culture were destroyed by the conquistadors and Spanish colonizers. In the aftermath of the downfall of the Aztec Empire, Mexico was born from the ashes as a combination of Spanish and Aztec cultures.
That's a fascinating introduction to Mexican history and Baroque art. The De La Torre brothers' work is both beautiful and striking, and I can see how their inspirations take shape in this installation. Each part has many layered meanings.
I'm always curious about the artist's intentions when looking at the artwork. Let's talk to Einar and Jaimex about it.
For the titles, I think we really enjoy having titles give possible meanings or different paths or avenues of consideration. In this case, natural causes implies dying of old age. But if we talk about humanity, are we the natural cause for the end of for our own demise? We obviously are here witnessing the demise of many, many species caused by the human interaction. And it's also up to us to fix it, and it is in our power.
When somebody dies of natural causes, there's always the possibility of having prolonged their life with lifestyle changes. We are using that as a metaphor for humanity. Of course, it's very obvious if we made a lot of lifestyle changes right now as humans, we could prolong or stay in this world.
In this exhibition, we wanted to talk about like the sort of what is the cliche of paganism, the idea of how people lived in the woods in communion with nature, which of course was the way that people, when there was much less population in the world, people did live in the next to nature. And I think that leaving that situation made us interestingly afraid of nature. And by being afraid of nature, we needed to therefore control it. And that is a big part of the problem that we're in.
To us, the pagan symbols of the forest are symbols of a time where we lived in respect with other species. And it's really quite obvious that if we don't come to share the world with other species, we're totally doomed. We think that the moment we decided that we're children of God, that's the moment we shot ourselves in the foot.
What's wrong with the idea that we're children of God is that the implication that God gave us this world to exploit, like my brother had just said. So therefore, there was, instead of being a kind of husbandry, it just became, this is here for me to exploit in terms of resources. Those little figures we make, the animal, we see them as animal spirits, like deities or protectors. So in this case, that's just like a symbolic protector, finally giving them their voice, if you will, as opposed to saying what's best for them. Well, I think that, what we wanted to talk about was how complex it is, our relationship to nature, and how it's even though it seems too late, it's not, it really is in our hands to make things better, and especially in the next generations, it's going to get very complicated. It is within our power. It seems daunting, but it's amazing what we've done in such little time to destroy the world. Why don't we turn all of our forces to maybe trying to not destroy it anymore and maybe even heal it?
That's definitely thought-provoking. Thanks, David, for sharing that with us. I've really enjoyed immersing myself in Of Natural Causes. It's been eye-opening.
I am so happy we were able to explore the works of these two incredible artists who are an inspiration to me personally.
I know I'm inspired. Join us next time as we explore the artwork of artist Joe Feddersen.
Bueno, eso es nuestro programa de hoy. Gracias por ver Junior Curator Academy. Tu mirada abajo del cone. Bye.
Bye.
A curator's job is to bring context to how they relate to contemporary human existence, the human condition, and as such, curators are the first filter to define what should be shown. And I can't overstate how important that is. You're making a conscious selection, and you have your reasons for making them. And I think us as artists, our job is to reflect the world as we see it. The job of the curator is to put the filter of what gets put on to reflect our society. So we have to, it's a collaborative process in a lot of ways.